First time founders focus on product and second time founders focus on distribution, right? And I remember one of the tabs, they had a list of your dream customers, right? And people that, not only are like, names of these dream customers, but people who could potentially introduce you to those customers. It was super in depth, right? And I think that was so interesting because it showed that you had this massive commitment, not just in terms of I have this idea, I'm going to get it out there and then people will come, but how am I going to actually get it in front of the people that matter as well? How you been?
Good, dude.
It's been some time, yeah.
Multiplier essentially is a global employment solution. We offer 3 products today. One, the first product is employment of record, where we help companies employ talent globally without having to set up their own legal entity, bank account, and so on and so forth. So you just find the talent, and we help you employ in 150 countries and take care of payroll, benefit, taxes, everything end to end. The second product is we can help you pay contractors or freelancers globally in any currency. And the third and the most recent product that we launched is global payroll. Here we help you with gross to net calculations, but also for your tax filings, as well as paying social contributions, income taxes, and salary.
Right.
So we've just built a full suite now, and we have a couple more exciting products in the pipeline.
Yeah, I remember one of the first times we met, you showed me this massive Excel sheet that had a ton of research and sort of in-depth findings about the work you put in prior to starting this business. Right?
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, wow, this was a lot of work. Can you tell me a little bit about why you kind of went to those lengths and sort of how important that was for, I guess, your journey looking back on it as well?
No, I think maybe you're one of the few people who actually know about that Excel file. So a little bit of background on how that Excel came about. So I started my career in investment banking in Tokyo.
Right.
So of course Excel is in the DNA.
Sure.
Covering Eastern Asian markets, China, Korea, Japan, Taiwan. Then I moved to Singapore, did banking. I was about to go for my MBA, and one of my very close friends convinced me to join this startup as a head of finance. And I worked there for a year, and I realized this is beautiful, and this is what I want to do. One of the things, coming from a humble family, you realize working for a startup is today building a business is accessible to common man. The tools like capital availability, digital marketing, and so on and so forth. So realize, hey, I can also build a business, and it's fun. So just delayed my MBA, started thinking about what to do. And the problem that I faced firsthand was international expansion. I was, as a head of Corp Dev, I was expanding to Australia, and it took me 6 months to open a bank account. And unless you have a bank account, you can't really hire anybody. And I expanded to Japan, it took 1 year. So the idea was, hey, the world is going global, and global is so broken, there has to be a better solution.
Right.
That's where I thought this is something that I want to start with. That's where I created that Excel. I visualized that idea in a 360-degree format in Excel. So, hey, what is my pitch going to be? What few layers of ideas, and then who? And the idea was not even concrete then. So I couldn't even define competitors. I had to say, idea 1 competitors are this, idea 2 and it's pure luck and fortune.
Sure.
The business plan that I created, my first 2 years revenue exactly turned out to be that. It's pure
Really?
fortune. You can never plan for that.
Really? Wow.
And Justin, one of the things that we've done is we raised $4 million seed capital even before I registered a business, even before I resigned. So it was more of a necessity, because you go to Sequoia and say, hey, I'm going to start a business, and they invest money in you, and you have to show there's something, because I was still in my last company. So that level of rigor, interviewing more than 500 customers, I still remember, was required to even start the business.
No, but I think that's so funny. And, I'm sure you've heard this expression, first time founders focus on product and second time founders focus on distribution, right? And I remember one of the tabs, they had a list of your dream customers, right? And people that, not only are like, names of these dream customers, but people who could potentially introduce you to those customers. It was super in depth, right? And I think that was so interesting because it showed that you had this massive commitment, not just in terms of I have this idea, I'm going to get it out there and then people will come, but how am I going to actually get it in front of the people that matter as well? Can you tell me a little bit about how you ended up working with a coach and how that's been like for you personally?
So different aspects of life, right? If you're just generally a CEO who likes to see things at a 10,000 feet level, I think different level of coaching is required. For me, I love to be updated about every single initiative that is going on. So in the beginning, it was difficult for me to let go of control, and So that is where one thing the coach has really helped in what kind of people I should hire so that I have a rapport with them and I can let go of control in certain departments. The second thing that has really helped me in communicating.
Yeah.
Like how to communicate in a setting where there is 400 people, 450 people,
sure.
versus how to communicate in a setting where there are 7 people.
Right.
Like if you come to any of our HOD's leadership meeting, I am the harshest person possible. If you come to our town hall, I would never criticize it.
Right.
It is never, like in a bigger setting, it's always giving the happy message. Okay, we'll never hide any news. If you have a bad news, we'll share the bad news. But we'll always motivate people. We'll never criticize anybody. We'll never single out anybody. So just the roles of a CEO, because you don't realize, like let's say as a CEO you don't realize, but the employee might have completely be demotivated the moment you say something in a public setting. So the understanding the emotional quotient of how to behave as a CEO, understanding from the perspective of what does a C-level feel and what does an analyst feel, and then speaking. So these two levels of skill set I think I've really built out with the help of a coach.
And this is my opinion, but I believe that the best leaders and the best managers are coaches themselves, right? They don't direct, they don't force, but they coach, right? And I think that, if you think about what a coach does, they're not micromanaging every step of the way, right? They're not getting up in there and trying to tell you what to do, but they give you the space that you need to reflect and grow and experiment, but they're also there when they need to be, right?
Absolutely.
And I'm curious also then, when it comes to the rest of your organization, right? Because your direct reports also has their direct reports and it goes so on and so on. How do you think about kind of scaling that type of mentality and culture, throughout the organization as well?
Very good question. I think that we are a fully remote and distributed team. We have 450 people in 35 countries, 60, 70 nationalities. So that is a tough job for us. So that's a challenge. I mean, the few things that we do is in the interview process itself, like the first 300 people that we hired, I interviewed everybody. And I shared, hey, this is what we are looking for. Are you comfortable? And I've also checked if they have those skills and mindset. The other thing is every month we have a town hall where I repeat these values and I say, hey guys, this is how we want to, hey folks, this is how we want to operate. This is our value. We are not people pleasers. We love to ask tough questions, whether it's a C-level or an analyst, doesn't matter. Let's ask tough questions, but very politely, very humbly. So I keep repeating that, and anytime I see that behavior across any channel, I go and highlight that. I say, sorry, you could be anybody, but this is not acceptable. So that becomes in leadership meeting that we have weekly. I highlight that again. You have to be asking tough questions. There's no scope for speaking English in our company, but you cannot be rude. You have to be extremely humble, polite, but ask tough questions, what we call truth seeking. Like lots and lots of people are interested in our products, have no space in Multiplier. 30 people are interested, out of the 2 are buying. Speak the language of finance, not the language of English.
Sure.
So we try to do that. Of course, not every department is there yet, but that's a perpetual struggle. And I'm also a very hands-on CEO.
Right.
Because I've done multiple things in my life, so I really like to take interest in every aspect. One thing that I realized is the greatest CEOs, and I obviously have coached now, I read a lot. I realized is the way to think about this is you are always with folded hands. Whether it's a junior employee or a senior employee or your investors or your customers, you're always with folded hands. You're always the most humble person, the most forgiving person, the person with the largest heart. Like having the largest heart in the room is the most important. Like an employee can get upset, but you cannot get upset. You cannot shout at them. The one thing that I learned over the journey is you always have to leave the room and space for them to come back if they want to. Let's say an employee gets upset one day, hey, what is this, and you shout back. That relationship is over. Then they will never be able to come back to you. So whether it's an investor, in the board meeting you sometimes have heated arguments. Whether you are young or old doesn't matter. As a CEO is a CEO. As a CEO, you always have to have the biggest heart. A customer can get upset, and it may not be your fault. You still have to have folded hands. So just being very forgiving, have a very, very large heart. So that's, I think the biggest learning is have the biggest heart, be extremely forgiving. At the end of the day, you are the biggest shareholder of your business.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
You do anything for temporary adrenaline or temporary ego boost, it's going to hurt your company, it's going to hurt you. So always be forgiving, always be large-hearted, and always think about resolving the situation. Never.
It's funny because also when I started as a founder, I think a lot of the things that you mentioned, I would have probably dismissed as this is very feel good stuff, right? Like touchy feely stuff, right? But I think as you realize, like in terms of ultimately, like business is about people, right? And you're not doing it with robots, you're doing it with people. And you know, if you don't focus on those types of things, it's impossible to scale. Right?
Absolutely.
It's impossible. And I think another thing that I found really, really interesting is I think, you know, I hear a lot of founders go into starting their companies because they want control, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to be in control.
Yeah.
I'm going to run the show.
Yeah.
But what I've realized, and I don't know if you feel the same way, and it's a little bit similar to what you mentioned, but I realized that my job, almost all of it, is to sell.
Absolutely.
Whether I'm selling something to the employees, a vision, a mission, whatever it is, investors, customers.
Yeah.
You know, ultimately, it's my job to convince them that this is the way to go. I can't force them.
Absolutely.
Right? I can't demand them, but I have to sell them and convince them this is the right way to go. And you can't do that without folded hands. Anyways, good seeing you, man.
Hey, good to see you.
Yeah.